welcome to episode 1 of the TarPack podcast. I am your host, Jay Bear. Joining me today is one of the biggest NC State fans that I know, and my brother, and he is going to be joining us on the TarPack podcast. For those of you who are just finding out, this is a rebrand of the formerly Jay Bear YT. This is now the TarPack podcast permanently, and this is your source for NC State and UNC football, basketball, and baseball, all on this platform in podcast format. And we have a good one for you today, don't we?
Yes, we do.
All right, today we are going to be looking at the depth charts and previewing the 2023-2024 season for both UNC and NC State's football programs. As you guys know, or possibly know, I've done this twice now. This is actually the third time now I've done this, starting in 2021 during the Sam Howell era and follow that up last year. But this is the first time we're going to do an NC State version as well. As you can see on the screen, we are going to be starting with UNC's football deep dive. I was inspired to do this series by that franchise guy on YouTube. I will link him in the description down below. He does these for every NFL team, and I love to watch those things. Let's get into this thing. All right, to start out this first live, we have our key departures and additions. To get it started, as you can see, I'm going to be going over some of our UNC's key departures. Feel free to jump in at any point.
Yep, I'll jump in multiple times for a couple of these guys.
All right, so to get it started, Jacoby Criswell, last year's backup quarterback, did end up transferring to Arkansas, where he is also the backup this year, which is, at the end of the day, I suppose, an interesting decision, considering he could have stayed at Carolina and been the starter next year after Drake leaves. But obviously, he wanted to be closer to his home as he is from Arkansas. But he was in a very close QB competition with Drake May for the longest time in last preseason. So I'm definitely excited to see what he does at Arkansas as a backup this year and their, I assume, future starter.
Yeah, Jacoby Criswell, he's a really talented QB, and, Drake May just overbeat him, and, he has to do what he got to do to get his way to try to make it to the NFL.
All right, so getting onto the receivers here, Josh Downs and Antoine Green are two huge losses for this program, but I wouldn't honestly look into this that much. As good as Josh Downs and Antoine Green are, we're going to get into some transfers that we brought in as well that are definitely going to be key impacts on this year's team. Josh Downs moving on to the Colts, Antoine Green heading to the Detroit Lions, both of them getting drafted. What are your thoughts on Josh Downs and Antoine Green?
Yeah, they were two very good wide receivers, and, they really helped Drake May out with getting open so many times. And
Josh Downs was really good at just getting open. He was a reliable first down pretty much automatically. He was so good at that. And then obviously Antoine Green, your deep threat guy.
Yep.
Moving on to the defensive tackle Ray Bahasek, who was drafted by the Jaguars in the 7th round, I believe it was. Ray was the nose tackle for 2 to 3 years with the Tar Heels. He had a fairly decent season. He didn't stay healthy, and he had, I believe some injury issues throughout the season. But he's definitely a key guy that we'll be missing. But we're hoping Travis Shaw can step in to that role and be that type of player. Awesome Richards in the offensive line was drafted by the Cowboys in the 4th round, I believe it was. Just pretty much based on his athleticism. He is a high upside tackle, I'll give him that, but really very few pieces on Carolina's offensive line have been good in the past few years. So we'll see how much we are missing him at left tackle. Jaquarius Conley at safety. unfortunately, injuries really hurt him. He's still in the transfer portal. He hasn't even got picked up by a team yet, at least at this recording date. Then we get a Storm Duck and Tony Grimes. Two talented guys, but they never could really put together on the field. We'll get some more thoughts on that when we get to the secondary later on. Cam Kelly also, sneak peek, he was pretty atrocious last year. It just didn't go great. He can make plays on the ball, but outside of that, it hasn't worked for Cam Kelly, especially in coverage where he's been a fairly poor player. Keeping it going, Chris Collins, the backup jack, the second jack last year until there was an injury to Noah Taylor, who also included in this bunch. But yeah, both those guys move on, and they are replaced by some really talented guys who we'll get to. Rod Dilworth at linebacker really struggled because of his lack of size. He's just a lightweight, just couldn't put on enough mass to play the position. Staff wanted him to move to safety, but he didn't want to do that, so he ended up transferring to ECU. Noah Taylor, we already mentioned. Keyshawn Silver transfers following two Tar Heels, Demi Sumo-Karmbe and Devin Leary to Kentucky. He is going over there because the staff wanted him, the former five-star, to move to offensive line. But Keyshawn wanted to stay at D-tackle, so he transferred to Kentucky. Caden Baker in the offensive line was not forced to, but he decided to medically retire. He just had a lot of injury issues, so he is currently just a student now at UNC. Dante Balfour, a cornerback who I liked a lot, actually. I'm not sure. I guess the staff wanted to kind of just push him away. Dede Hollins as well, who was a reliable guy, but he moved to Charlotte along with Dante Balfour. And Justin Olson, the final key departure, who's moving on here. All right, on to the key additions. Starting with Florida State transfer Amari Gaynor to fill in at Jack. He is going to be a guy who gets a lot of playing time. Transferred to Carolina to specifically play the Jack position. I do have high expectations for him. We'll see how he ends up doing. He's going to be along with Kamen Rucker at that Jack position. Tez Walker, hashtag free Tez, by the way.
Free Tez, always.
What is going on in that situation is absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, transfer from Kent State, wide receiver, absolutely freakishly athletic and has insane speed. A guy that will be really important for Carolina to get back, assuming he does get back. Nate McCullum, also wide receiver, transferred from Georgia Tech. Armani Chapman at DB from Virginia Tech. Elijah Huzzy, the transfer from East Tennessee State. Willie Lampkin, offensive line transfer. A guard, a center as well, that is transferred from Coastal Carolina. Derek Allen, the brother of another Tar Heel, Marcus Allen, who's also on this team, who we will talk about, transfers from Georgia Tech along with Nate McCullum. And Tavius Stick Lane, transferring from Georgia State, who the Tar Heels played last year. Staff liked what they saw, so when he entered the portal, they brought him in very quickly. Ryan Coe, new kicker for the team. Tom Magnus, who's going to be the punter after Ben Kiernan leaves. Amari Campbell, as we get into the freshman here, is a very, very promising young man. He was a low 3-star recruit, but he's apparently outperformed his ranking by far. Tad Hudson, former 4-star quarterback out of Charlotte with some potential. Christian Hamilton and Chris Culliver, two big-time wide receivers who in camp reportedly have already been very, very good players. And Tyler Thompson and Jabron Harvey, a very good duo at the jack position with a lot of upside as well. So that is going to wrap up our key additions and departures in this section. So now we will get into the position groups, starting here at quarterback. And as you can see, that beautiful 99 overall grade for our QB1, Drake May. 99 overall. That's a grade that you're not going to see often. We're not going to see that in the rest of the series overall, because State doesn't have anybody of that caliber, not to be disrespectful. But, yeah, Drake May, he's an absolute stud. Maybe the best quarterback in the nation, and definitely the best player for this UNC team. He was fantastic last year after being in a QB battle with Jacoby Criswell. What are your thoughts on Drake May's previous season with the Tar Heels?
Yeah, Drake May, he's a very talented QB. For all of last year, he was always a potential for Heisman, and he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in college this year.
I love his ability to run the ball as well as throw it. He was a stud. He had over 800 rushing yards last year to go along with the passing. So his run game is also something that can't be slept on. I know that Mac Brown and the staff don't want him to take as many hits as he did last year because he's too valuable to the team. But his ability to run is something that teams are going to have to deal with.
Yes, he's a very talented runner and passer, and he's just a very talented QB overall.
Getting to the backup room, we have Connor Harrell and Tad Hudson. As you can see, the drop-off here, at the moment at least, is quite significant. Connor Harrell, a redshirt freshman, and Tad Hudson being a true freshman. I like the upside that these guys have, but right now they're just simply not ready. Connor Harrell, however, is a really good athlete. So if for some reason Connor Harrell did have to step in, it'd be unfortunate, don't get me wrong, but he could at least threaten defenses with his feet and create that numbers advantage at least that way. A guy who was really pretty disrespected out of high school, honestly, given his record in high school and his accolades, but a guy nonetheless who is very talented and a potential starter in the future, valedictorian in high school, very smart guy as well. So I expect him to put things together, but it's just not there yet. And Tad Hudson, 4-star from Charlotte, very close with Drake May apparently, which makes sense, them being from Charlotte. I actually met Tad Hudson. Unfortunately, my brother here he was not there. I was walking to a basketball game, very interesting, and I just randomly walking down the streets of Chapel Hill, just saw Tad Hudson. That's pretty cool. But anyways, so yeah, that is the QB room. In my opinion, definitely the best in the ACC. Maybe not as far as depth goes, but definitely given the Drake May factor, what else can you ask for there? So moving on, we have the running back room led by, honestly, we're not really sure. I'm not sure anybody's sure, even the staff at the moment. I feel like they want the guy to be Omarion Hampton, who is a very, very highly touted 4-star running back out of high school, Gatorade High School Player of the Year in North Carolina as a senior. He was a very good and very highly recruited guy. But Elijah Green is the guy who got the majority of the starts and snaps at the end of last year because he was a guy who the staff could just trust. He's not the most overwhelmingly athletic guy, he's not going to run you over like Omarion Hampton can, but he's a very steady presence and a guy who is going to be at least a reliable piece in the offense. And I do expect him to have a pretty good year. As you can see, I gave him an 81 grade. But the running back group as a whole wasn't necessarily fantastic. Omarion Hampton being running back 2 here. Just in my kind of estimation with a little bit of inside knowledge and stuff like that, I gave him an 80 overall. He is the highest upside running back in this group by a decent margin, I honestly would say, between him and George Pettaway, who's also lightning quick. But getting in to the depth here, we have British Brooks, who is a 6th-year senior now, I believe, former walk-on special teams captain type of guy who was actually looking up. I remember we were at the NC State versus UNC football game in 2021, and British Brooks was a guy who they were pretty much relying on in that game when Carolina had a bad season. What do you remember from British Brooks in that NC State game back in 2021 that eventually ended in an NC State win?
He's a big body guy, and he plays with a lot of heart. He never gives up. He's always going to keep trying and everything. So he's a guy you would just always want on your team.
Yeah, that is something you could notice with him in that NC State game, and obviously all the other games that we've seen from him. He definitely has a chip on his shoulder, being that unrecruited guy that he was out of high school. Caleb Hood is another one of those really, really talented guys. I'd probably venture to say he's the 3rd most talented in this group, but he has had the worst injury bug, among the worst injury bugs that you've ever seen at the running back position. He starts to find his footing and starts to look really good, but then he just gets injured. So it's really unfortunate that what's going on with him. But right now he seems to be healthy, and if that's the case, he can definitely be a big piece to this Tar Heel season. And George Pettaway, who's probably the fastest guy in this group and also the most twitchy, just an insane athlete, a guy who can pretty much be a human joystick, kind of like in the Kadarius Toney type role for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's that type of bursty, quick twitched athlete. So yeah, I think it's a really good running back room. No one has emerged as being the guy and saying that this is their backfield to have or whatever. But there's a lot of talent in there. I believe at least one, if not two, of these guys will stand out enough that the staff can rely on them and put them out in big-time situations. So any final thoughts on the running back room here?
Yes, they are very talented running backs, and, some of them had worse time getting to where they are now with injuries and stuff than others. But we're just going to have to see how it stacks up with the coaching staff and what they want to decide.
A lot of talent in this room, definitely. Next group we're going to be getting into is the receiving core as a whole, including the tight ends, as you can see down there. Starting out, I have wide receiver one as being Tez Walker, hashtag free Tez, obviously. I want this guy to be, basically Antoine Green plus, because that is kind of his skill set. Just being able to just burn you deep, making some contested catches, but it's really the electric speed that changes things for Tez Walker. So I think he's going to be a game changer if he's able to play, but that is unfortunately still a question right now, even though I think that shouldn't be the case necessarily. Moving on, I have Nate McCullum, who is going to be like the wide receiver 2, but also like the main slot guy, if you know what I'm saying. Kind of in that Josh Downs role, man. I mean, the staff did a really good job at replacing the guys they lost here. Nate McCullum is very similar to Josh Downs. I don't think he's quite as twitchy as Josh Downs, and we'll see how reliable he is in like every scenario. But Nate McCullum's not going to have to get double teamed almost ever for this UNC offense because there are too many other weapons. Especially when Antoine Green was injured last year, Josh Downs kind of had to be the guy constantly, so he was facing a lot of double teams. But this is not going to be the case for Nate McCullum. He's going to have a lot of one-on-one matchups and free space to work with, so I have high expectations for him, especially given that he didn't have much good quarterback play at Georgia Tech. Wide receiver 3, Kobe Pacehour. He's a guy who actually filled in for Josh Downs last year when he was injured and actually looked very good. Like, he was in the games that Josh Downs missed, which is the main games he played in, as well as the bowl game against Oregon. He actually looked fantastic. On the year, Kobe Pacehour had a 61 grade on PFF, which isn't the greatest, but it's those games against the specific games, I should say, where Josh Downs missed is where he shined. App State, that bowl game against Oregon, Georgia State. He was a good player in those games. And I have high expectations for him, man. He's just a really good receiver. Not going to beat you with a whole bunch of athleticism, but he just knows how to play wide receiver. And in the wide receiver depth here, we have J.J. Jones, who started last year. Obviously, there are some guys that he's going to lose a little bit of snaps to, especially after getting injured at the end of last season. Gavin Blackwell as well, a very fast receiver that still hasn't really put it together yet, but a lot of potential there. Andre Green, just the absolute definition of potential that hasn't been put together yet. He's still just a redshirt freshman, so he has maybe the biggest upside on this entire receiving core, but we'll have to see where that comes from. He was almost a 5-star wide receiver a few years ago, so we'll see what he looks like. But that's more than likely the 6 guys that Carolina turns to, with freshmen like Christian Hamilton and Chris Culliver, guys they can turn to, being very highly touted wide receivers as well. Lonnie Galloway, man, just does a really good job at churning out these guys. So I can't wait to see what turns out of it. Doc Chapman, redshirt freshman as well, apparently had a tough time catching the ball in preseasons in the past, being a true freshman. Now that he's a redshirt freshman, apparently he can catch the ball more. He's got a really good twitchy ability. Guy who was formerly recruited by Alabama, so there's a lot of potential there. We'll see what he can come up with. And Paul Billups, don't expect to see him much, but another one of those guys that in a wide receiver group that's led by Lonnie Galloway, who knows what to expect.
100% agree. When you have Drake May as your quarterback, you just have to feel so much more confident as a Carolina wide receiver.
That's an absolutely great point. Yeah, Drake May is going to put these guys where they need to be, or he's going to do what he needs to do to get them the ball consistently and find them the easy plays and get everything done properly. So both the receivers are going to make Drake May's job easier, and Drake May's going to make the receiver's job easier. So that is a very good point there. And in the tight end room, we have Bryson Nesbitt as tight end 1, I guess you can say. Although Kamari Morales, and John Copenhaver are going to play significant snaps. Those would be the 3 that play this year in the big game situations. And you can see all these 3 guys on the field at the same time at times. Bryson Nesbitt, the best receiver of this group at the moment. He's got insane upside. Sort of in the Eric Ebron mold. Very highly athletic tight end who can really catch the ball and stretch the field. So he's going to help out Drake May as well. Kamari Morales has been a touchdown machine. It seems like almost every time he catches the ball, it's a touchdown. And he's also a fairly reliable blocker. And, of course, John Copenhaver, who you didn't see too much of last year. He was more that third tight end. But this year, man, I mean, he's getting talked as maybe being the best tight end in that room, which is kind of wild to me. But he is probably the best blocker of the group and can also turn upfield when he catches the ball, man. I mean, there's no doubt that this is probably the best tight end room in the country. It's probably between North Carolina and Georgia for who's the best tight end room in the country. I'm not sure anybody, including Georgia, has 3 guys that are highly as rated as these guys right here.
Yes, I do agree, but I don't think they're going to be better than Georgia.
It's hard to be better than Brock Bowers.
I mean, he's just so good at being a tight end and everything. But, I mean, it's a really stacked tight end room.
Yeah, he can catch, he can block. Brock Bowers is definitely that guy. He's definitely insane. But I'm talking about, as far as a group of 3 goes, I don't think anyone has a group of 3 like this. All right. And Julian Randolph is there as the 4th tight end. True freshman, kind of built in the similar mold to Bryson Nesbitt. So we'll see what he get from him. And moving on to the next group, we have the offensive line. Now, this has been a concerning spot for Carolina since Mac Brown got back, to be quite honest with you. These guys have been quite bad, honestly. They've allowed Drake May and Sam Howell, the 2 best quarterbacks in the school's history, to get sacked repeatedly. And there is a lot of, quite honestly, uninspiring players here. We'll see what we can get from them. Hopefully, I mean, the staff does like some of these guys, and they want 8 guys to rely on, but we'll see what they can get to. But starting here at left tackle, William Barnes is the predicted left tackle. He was a former high 4-star, hasn't necessarily lived up to those expectations. Played right guard last year, but he's moving to left tackle. Ed Montilus, he had his injury problems last year, so he really didn't play good football at all. He graded out very poorly on PFF. He had a really poor season. As a starter, it was really unfortunate. But being alongside one of his best friends in William Barnes may help him there, as they were former high school teammates. Corey Gaynor, transferred from Miami, is a solid piece. He had a decent year last year, and he is a really good leader, so I do like where the center position is at. Willie Lampkin, transfer from Coastal Carolina. He was the Southern Conference offensive lineman of the year in the was it the Sun Belt, I believe, at Coastal Carolina. So yeah, he was the offensive lineman of the year, and he's also a very good wrestler. So he's definitely got a chip on his shoulder. And Spencer Rollin is the one guy that I would honestly consider at the moment at least, a pro prospect. Spencer Rollin, a transfer from Harvard, actually had a fairly decent year last year, graded out at a 66 on PFF. So he had a pretty solid season. Another year in a Power 5 weight room and in this type of structure, I think he'll be pretty solid. So what do you think of that starting offensive line group this year?
I want to say this. The offensive line does look better than last year. But I still don't think, in my opinion, I still don't think it's going to be that good. I still think it's going to be pretty bad. But you got some transfers that are pretty good up there and everything. So, yeah.
But as a whole, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be good enough to, consider at least even an average offensive line group, honestly. If this offensive line can be average, Carolina might have the best offense in the country because there's so many other pieces. If this offensive line can put it together, this is going to be a great, great offense.
Yeah, as a State fan, I really hope they don't put it together and just have another bad year like usual.
I figured you were going to say that. But anyways, getting into the depth here, Travion Green is going to be, along with Diego Pounds, those are the two backup tackles. And those are guys who the staff really does have high hopes in. They think they are going to be very good in the future. Probably not quite there yet. Diego Pounds seems maybe a little bit closer than Travion Green. But Travion Green, man, 6'8", goodness, almost 400 pounds or whatever. But he is a massive man. We saw him at the UNC versus FAMU game the start of last year, and as they were entering not the tunnel, but the area where they go into Keenan Memorial Stadium, we get to high five Travion Green's hand, and his hand is legitimately double the size of our hands.
Definitely.
He is just a massive, massive man. And obviously that can be said about most tackles, but goodness, Travion Green is a different type of massive. And I have Zach Rice here at tackle depth, but it is more than likely he's going to be playing at guard, at least for now, maybe for his entire football career, wherever that entails. But a former 5-star recruit who started out training camp last year working with the starters, but it didn't turn out that way, man. I mean, he just couldn't figure it out in year one, which is understandable. He still has a very high upside and needed to lose a little bit of weight, which is weird to say for an offensive lineman. But, yeah, there's still high upside there. I was really excited when the Tar Heels landed him, but he did not have a good year last year, even though he did play just a very, very small number of snaps. What are your thoughts on Zach Rice?
Yeah, I remember when y'all got him, and I was very unhappy about it, but, he still has potential.
Guard depth, we have Jonathan Adorno and Malik McGowan. Jonathan Adorno could start over a Willie Lampkin or Ed Montilus. I don't necessarily expect it, but it's definitely possible. Malik McGowan is, I believe, a redshirt junior that the team feels pretty decent about. He was one of my guys a couple of years ago that I thought was going to kind of have a breakout at some point. And Chance Carroll is the backup center. Really, Willie Lampkin's the backup center, but as far as everybody else, backup center would be Chance Carroll, a former walk-on. So that tells you some things there about this offensive line group. Final thoughts on the offensive line?
Like I said at the start, I think they're improving, but they still have a lot to work on.
Definitely a lot to work on, especially that this is the third offensive line coach they've had in as many years, which is very concerning. But moving on from the offense, we're going to be moving to the defensive side of the ball, which obviously last year was also fairly like a train wreck, to be quite honest. I mean, these guys, it doesn't look as bad as you might think because all of these guys, I mean, the defensive line has some of the most potential on the team, but basically nobody is put together, which is the problem. Starting at nose tackle, Kevin Hester is going to be the starting nose tackle, with Tamari Fox also being a guy who can step in and play a lot of snaps, which I expect him to do. Kevin Hester, a former basketball player, only played, I believe, 1 or 2 years in high school football even before he was offered to go to Carolina. He's been okay since being here, but he has been a guy that, at the very least, has got better. At the defensive end or rush end, spot 1, we have Desmond Evans, the former number 2 player in the country, according to ESPN, who has not lived up whatsoever to those expectations. He's only got, like 3 or 4 sacks in his career as he's now a senior, been playing since a freshman. But he did get injured last year, missed some of the season. The hopes are that he's going to have a breakout. It's possible. I mean, it's at this point, who knows what to expect from any of these defensive linemen. But looking at what we have here in bringing in Ted Monachino as an a defensive analyst, there's a lot of potential for him to get better. But being the number 2 former player in the country, it is slightly disappointing that what he's brought to the table thus far.
Yes, how he's the number 2 player in the country,
according
and
to ESPN.
How he just been performing over the years is just showing how he really had not been to where he should have been.
Yeah, and that's why having guys like Jahvaree Ritzie, Bo Atkinson, and Jacoby Cowan are so important, guys who can step in and be big pieces with potential to step up in case anyone is not performing to the level they need to. I mean, because that's very possible here. Jahvaree Ritzie's a guy who can play D-tackle or defensive end. He's kind of a mixture in between the two, probably preferably like a 4-eye technique type of guy if he does end up making it to the next level. But yeah, Jahvaree Ritzie, guy from Winston-Salem who is very highly touted. Again, on some services near a 5-star prospect, Jahvaree Ritzie was, but had a really good starting to his career and as a freshman, but it hasn't been consistent necessarily. Jacoby Cowan, transfer from Ohio State, who played a little bit last year and got better throughout the season, so I hope he does continue to improve there. And Bo Atkinson, a 4-star prospect who's kind of built like Aiden Hutchinson in a way, the former number 2 overall pick to the Detroit Lions. So I hope he can bring some intensity to the defensive line as well. Myles Murphy is the best player right now, at least on the defensive line, in my opinion. He's been a guy, he went to Dudley High School in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he's been a guy who actually has had production. He had an injury-riddled season last year, so he didn't get to play at full health. But as a sophomore, he was a very good player, as well as a freshman. So we'll see if he can get back to that. Travis Shaw, obviously, maybe the biggest name on the team, being a former 5-star prospect at one point, ranked like number 2 or number 1 in the country on some websites. Last year, he was significantly overweight, where he could barely jump over people while running on the court, reference to the FAMU game. But yeah, Travis Shaw, just a mammoth of a man with high, sky-high upside, to be quite honest. The staff at Carolina thinks he can be a first-round pick, which, I mean, he showed he's going to give the effort. He lost like 40 pounds this year. So we'll see if he can bring, and I know my brother here wants to add some points on Travis Shaw.
Travis Shaw, 5-star, went to high school at Grimsby. I've seen him play at high school. I have very high expectations. He lost the weight. He's more fit now. He had dog in him, and he's going to be a real threat in college football, I feel like.
I agree with that. And Kedrick Bingley-Jones, another guy with high potential, the guy who's had injuries and hasn't put it quite together yet. Moving on to the linebackers, who is, in my opinion, right now the best group by far on the defense. I included Jack on this screen, even though they're kind of hybrid defensive linemen / linebackers. But starting here at Jack, Kamen Rucker's going to be the starter. I gave him a 90 overall grade. He's the best pass rusher on the team. He's a guy who was very lowly recruited, a very low 3-star, but from the state of Georgia. Those guys just seem to have a special type of dog in them. Do you agree?
Georgia football players. They're just insane.
They're just dogs, absolute dogs. Kamen Rucker is no exception. He's a smaller guy, but he's just the best pass rusher on the team. Also, Amari Gaynor, who we mentioned in the additions area earlier from Florida State, came here to play Jack for Gene Chizik. Very good middle linebacker at Florida State, but came here as a part of a business decision to get to the NFL. To get to the NFL and show what he can do as a pass rusher. And Javon Harvey and Tyler Thompson are two guys I'm very high on at the Jack depth room. True freshmen, both of them. Need to put some weight on and get in the weight room and get some muscle, but they have high potential, definitely. Malachi Hamrick's a guy who's injured out for the season. Out for the season, unfortunately, because he would have been that third guy this year. But it is unfortunate he's going to miss the season. Jack is in really good hands, honestly, as long as everyone stays healthy. I like how that position is shaping up. But then you get into the inside linebackers, who are very, very talented. We start with Cedric Gray, who could have went to the NFL this past year and been like a third or fourth round draft pick, but came back because, and I quote, he wants to go, or I'm paraphrasing, I should say, he wants to be a first round draft pick. Cedric Gray, a guy who's got really good instincts and coverage, is a really good athlete. He used to play wide receiver. You can see those athletic instincts showing up all over the field. He's a very smart guy as well, knows how the defense plays. I'm very high on Cedric Gray. Cedric Gray, gave him a 95 overall here as our number one inside linebacker on the UNC Tar Heels. All right, and Power Eccles, going into his true junior season, another very highly touted guy, a very physical guy. Not the biggest guy, but he makes up for that with his intensity and physicality. I gave him an 86 here. This is maybe the best linebacker duo in the ACC, especially now with Isaiah Thomas and Drake Thomas. Isaiah Moore and Drake Thomas being out of the ACC now.
And yeah, unfortunately, Drake Thomas and Isaiah Moore are both gone. They went to the sign for NFL teams, the Rams and the Raiders.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Going to the inside linebacker depth, Sebastian Cheeks is a very highly regarded guy out of Illinois that we brought in out of high school. Same thing with Amari Campbell, who's a lowly rated 3-star, who is now a guy who's got high expectations, man. And Deuce Caldwell, a guy who used to play like a kind of hybrid safety role, who is now a linebacker in college. So linebacker overall, the depth does obviously need some work. But there's some high potential guys in there who I expect a lot of things from in the future at the very least. As long as Cedric Gray and Power Eccles stay healthy, that's all you could ever ask for at the linebacker position.
Yeah, Cedric Gray and Power Eccles, they just put so much energy, so much love into the game of football. They always just go out and try as hard as they can, and they're just absolute dogs.
Absolute dogs. Moving on to our final position group here, we have the secondary, who has been very lackluster the last couple of years. I know my brother wants to get some points on this here, but they've been very, very lackluster. So we'll see what comes of it as we get into it here. But anyways, Elijah Huzzy and Marcus Allen replacing Storm Duck and Tony Grimes. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know how they're going to play to see these two, but getting rid of Storm Duck and Tony Grimes just has to be a win for Carolina for how absolutely garbage they were and how much I loved for them being so garbage just so in-state had chances of beating you. It's just such a great sight to see. Yeah,
unfortunately the case. They had really tough times. Tony Grimes now, I believe, third string corner at Texas A&M. He's got a lot of potential. He's a really good athlete. Just has to put it together and maybe watch that mouth a little bit. So Elijah Huzzy, a All-American at the FCS level, transferring in I am very high on him. Everything we've heard from fall camp has been leaning toward him being an incredible player, a very, very good lockdown corner. Hopefully that's the case. Marcus Allen is a bigger bodied guy. I did mention his brother, who's also in the secondary that you can see, Derek Allen, who transferred from Georgia Tech. Marcus Allen is the former high school All-American brother of his, who played some corner at the end of last year as a true freshman, now being a true sophomore. The staff loves this kid. He's long, athletic, tall, rangy, can do pretty much everything you want to do at the cornerback position. Obviously, he's young, though, and has to put it together and show that he can do that consistently. As far as the next group of corners go, Tayon Holloway's a third corner. Armani Chapman, the transfer from Virginia Tech, is the fourth guy. And Legend Cavazos, the former transfer from Ohio State, is the fifth guy. Probably the fourth guy when he gets back and healthy. And at star, we have DeAndre Boykins, who is currently injured, which is unfortunate. But he did really good last year as a, was it a redshirt freshman or is it a true sophomore? I can't remember, but it was his second year in college. Highly recruited guy, loves to hit. He's not very big, but he plays like a big physical linebacker in the secondary, which I love. He made some clutch interceptions for Carolina last year as well. Antavius Lane, the transfer from Georgia State, looks like he could be a guy that fills in at star, maybe along with DJ Jones, the converted running back as well.
Now let me tell you who loves to hit. Tanner Ingle. Just absolutely loves just trucking people as hard as they can. Always beginning the clutch interceptions like last year against Carolina.
Yeah, that's very true. We'll get to that. We'll get to Tanner Ingle in the NC State version of this deep dive series that we will be getting to right after this. So stay tuned if you're an NC State fan to see my brother's analysis on the NC State Wolfpack for this upcoming season. But yeah, Tanner Ingle has been playing pretty well for the LA Rams. Getting into the safety room, Gio Biggers and Don Chapman. Gio Biggers, a very experienced guy, not the best athlete, not the most physical guy, but just knows what he's doing. Mostly the same things with Don Chapman, honestly. Although I do think Don Chapman is a little bit more physical, while Gio Biggers is maybe more in the athletic type mold. But yeah, Don Chapman, I do expect to start. Will Hardy is a guy who may start, but he has been injured and hasn't been able to practice. So I kind of expect Don Chapman to take the first reps out there against South Carolina in game one. But yeah, Will Hardy, another one of those Georgia 3-stars, man. Something about the Georgia 3-stars. They're just absolute studs.
Really just all Georgia players. I mean, if you're from Georgia and you have any star level, you can just be an absolute dog in college.
That's true. I mean, as weird as it sounds, that is one reason that Georgia, the Bulldogs, have been such, great teams the past couple of years. But anyways, Will Hardy, a guy who will play a lot at safety as long as he can stay healthy. And Derek Allen, we mentioned earlier, transferred from Georgia Tech. Really good athlete, just hasn't put it together at the college level. Formerly went to Notre Dame even before Georgia Tech. And DJ Jones, who you might recognize as the converted running back. He was a running back last year. A lot of people speculated that he was going to be a transfer candidate, but he didn't end up doing that. He wanted to stay and help out this team, so he is staying in the safety room. Any last thoughts on this Carolina secondary?
No, it looks pretty good to me.
I think it's okay with the potential to be pretty good, especially in the corners. I love the potential for the corners, and I said the same thing last year. I definitely overrated Storm Duck and Tony Grimes last year, but to be fair, the potential definitely was there, and I can say the same thing here. But with more production from Elijah Huzzy, showing at the FCS level that he can be a very, very good. And to finish it up here, I have the J-Bear 4. My 4 guys that not too many people talk about that I think are going to be absolute studs. Not even necessarily this year, but in the future. Starting out, Chris Culliver, the 4-star wide receiver from this past recruiting class in the class of 2023. I remember when he was like a middling, mid-level 3-star, around like 500, 600th best player in the country. And I was like, guys, this guy's going to blow up. He's got the size. He's got the speed. He plays basketball. He's got the athleticism. He's going to blow up. And, of course, he did, ending up as a consensus 4-star recruit, borderline top 100 player in the class of 2023. And it's possible he gets on the field this year. There's been some rumblings of that. Julian Randolph, I love his build. Built similarly to a guy like Bryson Nesbitt, who obviously is going to be a very impactful player for Carolina this year. Jabron Harvey led the nation in high school sacks as a junior with like was it 28 or was it like 58? It was something like that. I can't remember, but I remember seeing on Max Preps or maybe on a Carolina recruiting website or something like that he led the nation in sacks his junior year in high school. So you can tell the pass rushing skill set's there. Just got to put some weight on and get some development in the weight room and elsewhere. And finally, Stick Lane, a guy who was all conference 2 years, actually 3 years maybe, while he was at Georgia State. He gave Carolina some fits definitely when we played them the past 2 seasons. But Stick Lane is my final guy. Your thoughts on the final J-Bear 4 and the last thing on this deep dive?
Yeah, it looks very good, and I have very high expectations for Chris Culliver.
Is it fair to say that this is your favorite player on the J-Bear 4?
Yes.
Yeah, Chris Culliver, I do think is going to be very, very good. But, man, I feel like nobody's talking about Jabron Harvey. I'm going to go with him. But, yes, that is going to conclude the deep dive for Carolina's 2023-2024 football season. Now let's get in to that NC State portion led by my brother, CamCan187.
And welcome to the 2023 through 2024 NC State football deep dive. And we're now going to the key departures and additions. Starting with key departures, Devin Weary transferred to Kentucky, and he's been a very good player for our team. And it's very unfortunate to see him leave. But I understand that he wants to win more. He wants to have a high chance of college football players and get to the NFL. But it's still very just unfortunate to see him leave. And now going to Ben Finley. He is the definition of mid. He had a couple good games for us, but he's really just never performed good. Other than a couple games, and that's really just he's transferring to the University of California, and that's basically it for him.
Of course, he had a good game against Carolina. That was annoying. But how can you not have a good game against Storm Duck and Tony Grimes?
Yeah, it's very easy for that. Devin Carter now transfers to West Virginia. I understand. I mean, he probably would have stayed if Devin Weary would have stayed, honestly, in my opinion. But he decided to leave.
I still think he would have started, though, at State, don't you?
Oh, he 100% would have started at State. And now to Dimi Simocombe.
Yeah, that's a tough name there.
As he is the 4th-string quarterback at Kentucky with Devin Weary, his favorite teammate. 4th-stringing running back at Kentucky, as Devin Weary is his teammate. But I don't know why he left State, because he would have been at least the 2nd stringer, the starter at State. But now he's the 4th-string running back at Kentucky. So
they want the former 4-star Michael Allen to probably be that guy, honestly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it still is an unfortunate loss.
Yeah. And now Drake Thomas, he's on the Las Vegas Raiders. And, he's a very talented player.
Just more sacks than Peyton Wilson.
More sacks than Peyton Wilson. And now it's time for Tanner Ingle, the hard-hitting monster himself.
Very hard-hitting.
On the Los Angeles Rams. Just such a good football player. Has so much dog in him. And yeah. And now to Chandler Zavala. Got drafted by the Panthers. Offensive guard. Don't really know how he's going to play out in the NFL. But for NC State, he was very good for us. And now to Isaiah Moore. On the Las Vegas Raiders. Injured right now. But, you know, he was very improved for State. He helped our team out a lot, and he's going to be a very tough loss for us. Thayer Thomas, one of our best wide receivers. Vikings. Very talented. And, yeah, the two Thomas brothers on the team.
Also lost him in baseball, which is unfortunate.
And he was on our baseball team, too. Very unfortunate. Even though he really didn't play that much on our baseball team, but, you know, you can always enjoy having a Thayer Thomas.
A true NC State guy.
Yeah, he's just a true dude that loves NC State. Just like all the Thomases, as you're going to see for the quarterbacks later. Grant Gibson, offensive guard, senior, been here for a very long time. Unfortunately, not on the NFL team, but, you know, he had a very good college career. And Corey Durden, very talented player. Very good. And,
probably your
yeah,
best D lineman last year.
Definitely our best. And then Tyler Baker Williams, very talented player with a ton of dog in him.
He's very good at the nickelback position.
Very good at nickelback. I mean, really, every player on this list, except for really Ben Finley, is just a very unfortunate loss.
Yeah, NC State just does their best to bring in absolute dogs on defense.
Absolute dog. Derek Pitts Jr., cornerback, just another dog. This man just hard hitting, just so good at football. I mean, every player on this list, other than really Ben Finley, is good at football.
You may not miss him that much with the group of corners they still have.
Yeah, we still have a stacked corner position. Cyrus Fagan, safety, very talented at being at the safety position, just very good player and everything. And now Christopher Dunn, you know, best college kicker in college football last year. I mean, that's all I need to really say about him. Very unfortunate loss for us, how he lost the best kicker in college football. And now it's time for the key addition, Brennan Armstrong, quarterback from Virginia. Just as he had a very tough last year, but the year before that, I remember being at the Carolina game against Virginia in 2021, and Sam Howell threw for like 800 yards, and Brennan Armstrong threw like 800 yards. It was just so many yards. And as Brennan Armstrong does have some interception problems by throwing a lot of them, he's still a player that I would enjoy having after losing Devin Leary.
Also followed as offensive coordinator here at NC State.
Yes, very great for that. Robert Kennedy, very talented safety.
Good transfer. I like.
Good transfer. He's a really good player. And now Braden Narvison. We got a kicker.
Had to replace Christopher Dunn.
We had to get a kicker for the best college football kicker in football, for another kicker. And now we got Noah Porter, defensive line. He's a very talented player. And yeah, just Dakari Collin, wide receiver. Very talented from Clemson. You know, when you get a very tall, lengthy dude and you got a quarterback just throwing to you, you got to be kind of excited for that. Just having that good wide receiver. And now Dawson Jaramillo, Oregon offensive lineman. The man is just very good at offensive line. He just didn't get that much playing time at Oregon. He wanted to go somewhere where he could play more, so he came to State. And now Lex Thomas, you know, the Thomases are just full-on top-tier Pack fans. They love the Pack. Now we got Lex Thomas, just QB3 on our list, as he is a freshman. Now Red Hibbler, defensive end. What a name. It's just such a great name. You know, I have a lot of faith in this dude. I really feel like he could be really good, as he came from a junior college. And yeah, no.
There's something about those junior college guys, kind of like Ray Vahasik. I just love junior college guys. They have a different type of dog in them, usually.
And now Juice Burton, in just another great name, tied in. 4-star. Just very talented. Have a lot of excitement for what he's going to do for the next couple of years here. And now it's time for the quarterbacks. Brendan Armstrong is QB1. Have him at 83 overall. I know last year was a pretty bad year, but I have a lot of faith. I mean, he's been in college for a very long time. He knows what he's doing. He got an offensive coordinator coming with him, and yeah. MJ Morris, 81, QB2. We basically just saw what he could do last year. He's a really good football player. He had dog in him. And now Lex Thomas, got him at a 66 overall, QB3. He is a freshman, so we really can't say that much on him. High school career was not like top tier high school career, but he was a really low 3-star. And yeah, now it's time for the.
Just to add a quick note on the quarterbacks. MJ Morris is definitely a high upside guy. I understand why they went out to get Brendan Armstrong, especially with the offensive coordinator change. MJ Morris should be the future of this NC State program, but right now I definitely like the decision to go to Brendan Armstrong for 1 year.
And now it's time for the running back, as we got Jordan Houston as running back 1 at an 81 overall.
Injured quite a bit last year, I think, right?
I mean, he was injured a couple times, but the main injury-prone player for us last year was Dimi Simokambe. And Jordan Houston, he's a talented wide receiver. He's a talented dude. He's not one of those dudes that you would full-on playing.
Definitely.
And you would want a better one, but he's a reliable one. Like, if you're 4th and goal on like the 2-yard line and the game's on the line, you know, you could trust him at least to get a couple yards there.
He knows what he's doing. Definitely.
Yeah, he definitely knows what he's doing. Now, Michael Allen, former 4-star, 79 overall, running back 2. He's had some playing time. He looked not perfect, not amazing, but he hasn't looked bad either. He's been looking on the upside a little. And yeah, now to the 3rd-string quarterback, Kendrick Raphael, 71 overall. Not really, just like, he's still pretty young. He's still just on a team.
Yeah, not ready to play, but
yeah,
definitely talented.
Definitely talented.
Pretty much the same with probably all 3 of those guys, right?
DeMarcus Jones the 2nd. Delbert Mims the 3rd. They're all just pretty young. They're all pretty talented running backs. And yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a running back room that definitely has some potential. I think Michael Allen could definitely be like the best running back, like even by the end of next year. You think so?
Yes, 100% agree.
Yeah, I think he's honestly like maybe by far the most talented. I really like Michael Allen. He did pretty good last year, but we'll just see if he's ready to have that breakout type season.
And now it's time for the wide receivers and tight ends.
We definitely got some stories about the wide receivers.
Yes, we got a ton of potential here. As we got Kayon Lesane, wide receiver 1. He is just a very talented dude, 84 overall, very talented. Just always is going to keep going, never going to give up. He's just a very talented wide receiver. And now we got wide receiver 3, SWAT receiver, Porter Rook.
Yeah, he really is the. I do believe. Yeah. Is that true that he really is the wide receiver 1? He's gonna be the most targeted guy, but he's just in the slot, which is why we have him in the graphic like that.
Yeah, he's 100% going to be our most targeted wide receiver. He's just overall our best wide receiver. 87 overall. A very talented wide receiver. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to run the field through and everything. And now 79 overall wide receiver 2, Terrell Timmons Jr. We didn't see that much of him last year. I've seen him play in high school. This is his second year in college. And yeah, he's a very talented person, and he's really moved up the ranks from last year being like the 4th, 5th string like wide receiver, like near the bottom this width, to now being up there on the starter. From getting 3 catches last year to being like possibly, depending on what we do, could be starting the first play of the season.
He definitely could. Yeah, remember, like you said, seeing him in high school, you could see the speed and height combination, which is really important for wide receivers. We'll just have to see if he's ready to take on that full role. But he's definitely bulked up. We've seen on his Twitter account, right, where he's definitely a bigger player than he previously was.
From 175 to 195.
That's a good jump for one season.
Yes, very good. And now wide receiver depth, we got Anthony Smith. I have actual very high expectations for Julian Gray. I expect him to be a very talented wide receiver in the next couple years. DJ Collins.
I am intrigued by DJ Collins, the Clemson transfer.
Yes, DJ Collins, very intrigued by him. Clemson transfer. He's just so tall.
What is he, 6'5", I think?
Yeah, and just so tall, just such a dog, and he has that height. He can like catch any ball that's possible to catch. And now Kevin Conception, he
love true freshman.
Loving true freshman. I mean, he has potential and everything. He almost committed to Carolina. Almost committed to Carolina, but he did not. He went to State.
And the thing about Kevin Concepcion, he was a very good player in college. He reminded me a lot of kind of like a Porter Rooks, I believe. We'll see what he ends up being in college, though.
Yes, we will. And now Jalen Colt.
I think it's probably pronounced
Coy.
He hasn't played.
And he hasn't really played, so, I mean, I really don't know what to really say about him. He just did,
wait and see it.
We'll wait and see to see it. And now for the tight end, Trent Penix. Definitely our number 1 tight end.
Kind of built like a receiver.
He's built like a receiver, 85 overall, tight end 1. He ain't the best blocker in the world. As our second dude, Christopher Tudell, way better blocker he is. But Trent Penix can just get open anytime and just do what he needs to do to get open and score.
Yeah, Trent Penix is definitely a guy I'm high on. Kind of like a big receiver type guy. I like him a lot. I guess we'll get into the tight end depth now.
And now tight end depth, Bro and Juice Varian. I have very high hope for Juice Varian and Bro. I feel like they can both take their spots, and I feel like Juice Varian next year when Trent Penix leaves, I feel like he could be that tight end 1.
Yeah, I agree with that. Overall, in the receiving group for NC State, I honestly think it is one of the, honestly, probably like a mid-level receiving group compared to the ACC. Obviously, it's not near on the UNC level as the offense as a whole is, except for the offensive line, obviously, which we'll get to. But yeah, there's definitely potential in here and some reliable guys.
And now to the offensive line. They have been reliable for multiple years.
Had a few struggles last year, but nothing,
a few struggles.
Nothing troubling.
Yeah.
Especially the guys are bringing in.
Yeah, and now we're going to Anthony Belton, left tackle, 81 overall. He's played a couple seasons. He's really he has played, but he hasn't played that much just because of the dudes that used to be in front of him.
Pretty much all these guys are experienced. They've played at least somewhere elsewhere, or been getting ready. They're older guys offensive lineman.
Yep. And now Dawson Jarmilio. He is a Oregon transfer to NC State, 80 overall. We really haven't seen him in college because he really didn't get any playing time at Oregon. So this is going to be our really first, actual full-on his expectation of college football for him at the left guard, 80 overall. As I have very high expectations for him. And now to Dylan McMahon.
I love Dylan McMahon. I just love the way he plays.
Yes, he is taking Grant Gibson's spot, but he's already played a lot in college. He shows that he knows how to run the center position. He shows he knows how to just play the position and very good. And now Derek Eason. All these guys on this list have experience.
He's probably who I would worry about the most this year.
Definitely the most. But I still think our offensive line will be fine. And now Timothy McKay.
Probably the best conference.
Definitely the best offensive lineman we have on the team. He has just been playing for a long time here. He showed he knows how to play. He's been starting to. He is the one offensive lineman we've full-on seen a whole season starting. And now to the OT depth. Patrick Matton, J.O. David, Jaquarius Peak. They are all just very talented, but they haven't really had any experience in the college level.
Takes a while.
So it's going to take a while for them to actually get there. And now to the OG depth. Anthony Carter Jr., Lyndon Cooper. Same thing for the offensive tackle. They really just haven't had really any experience in college. And now Rylan Van at center, he really just hasn't had no experience at all. He really hadn't even had none at all.
Is he Devin Van's brother?
Yes.
Oh, he is. Okay, that's that. I thought he was Devin Van's brother, but I guess that makes sense. He's on the offensive side of the ball. That'd be interesting seeing them go against each other, offensive center versus defensive line.
It will. And now to the defensive line. Including brothers, here we got Davin Bain. Right here, 87 overall, defensive end, one. Definitely the best one we have. He has been good for years. He's just been absolutely playing great football. Got 6 sacks last year. Just absolutely talented football player. And yeah, now to CJ Clark.
Starting nose tackle.
Starting nose tackle, 82 overall. He's played some, but he really hasn't got too much playing time. He got 2 sacks last year. But obviously the guys that started over him took most of his playing time. And now Savion Jackson has had 85 overall. Has had tons of playing time. Not really.
I really do like his potential.
He has a ton of potential.
He hasn't played that much, but I really do love his potential there.
With all the players that are leaving this year, it's a time for a lot of these dudes that have been on state for a while that haven't played really at all. It's time for them to finally be able to play, as the people we've been relying on for years are gone or NFL.
That's true.
Or transferred. And now DTDE depth. Red Hibbler. Very high hope for Red Hibbler.
Is he your favorite defensive guy that's new, probably?
That's new that came to state this year? Definitely him. Traviel Price. Just hasn't really had any playing time. Doesn't really have any college football experience. Nick Campbell, same. Just hasn't really had any college football experience. DJ Jackson, Noah Porter, Brendan Cleveland. Noah Porter has had some college football experience, but DJ Jackson and Brendan Cleveland really haven't had any college football experience.
Did Noah Porter come from Cincinnati?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And now to the linebackers.
Best group on the defense, probably. Well, I mean, actually,
No.
Yeah, you did
Definitely not.
The secondary, probably?
Yes, it's definitely not this.
We'll see what you have the secondary ranked as. But yeah, the linebackers are pretty good.
Yes, they are very good. And now, starting with linebacker 1, Tim Wilson, 94 overall.
Very interesting player, Peyton Wilson.
I have just very high hopes for him this year. He's supposed to be the heart of this defense. 4 sacks last year. I know it doesn't sound amazing for a 94 overall, but I just have very high hopes for this man this year.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. The 4 sacks is kind of worrisome. He only had 29 total pressures, which is lower than you'd be looking for a guy that's, honest. I mean, everyone's highly regarding him. I'm not sure, how much that's deserved, but yeah, that's one of the things I disagree at. But yeah, Peyton Wilson, he's definitely a fine player, but he hasn't met his full potential definitely yet.
And now we're going to Devin Betty, 87 overall, middle linebacker. He has been pretty good for NC State. 3 sacks last year.
Made some big plays. In the Syracuse game, maybe he made some big plays. I can't remember.
Yes. Very talented. 3 sacks. I would like to see more from him, but he's still a very good player for us. And now Jalen Scott, 86 overall.
I feel like you're basing these ratings off just how NC State turns players into good linebackers, because Jalen Scott hasn't played that much yet, but I definitely see the potential.
Yes, I see a ton of potential in him. I really believe he's going to be a really talented linebacker. So I have him at 86 overall. And I know he really didn't get that much playing time last year. He got 0 sacks last year, but I mean, I have very high potential for him. This is his first time actually playing big minutes on the field. I mean, I have very high hopes. All these guys will beat their numbers from last year, with them being like some of the main players on the field. And now Jordan Poole
only played 1 game, but he was very good in that 1 game.
Yes, he only played 1 game this season, but he shows that he is able to play on the college level. That's why I have him at an 81 overall, because we know he is able to go into games and he's able to get it done if he needs to. And now Caden Fordham, Jalen Parker really haven't had much college football experience at all. Torrin Wright, Nate Evans, Dejon Thompson, all of them really just haven't had that many snaps. They haven't really played any college football. They really haven't had the college football experience yet. And now to the secondary. Well, I think it's the best defense on NC State, the best part of our team.
Yeah, I actually agree now that you're mentioning that. Yeah, this secondary is very nice, actually.
Just so stacked. And now we got Jakeem Harris, 86 overall. Very talented player.
Very good free safety.
Yes, very talented. Just played way more snaps last year than the other year. At other years, he really hadn't played that many snaps. This year, he played a ton of snaps. He showed he can be able to play on the field. He can play college football. He can be one of those dudes that you can rely on. Now, Devin Boykin. Very high hopes on this man. I really believe he can be a very good player, as he had a pretty good year last year.
Didn't allow any touchdowns in coverage, which is very good for the amount of games he played.
Yes, he got the game-winning interception against Florida State.
Wow.
I really think he's going to show out this year and show that he is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and show that he is going to be one of the best safeties in college football.
Only allowed a 32.9 NFL passer rating against him last year, which is very good.
I mean, I know he didn't get that much playing time last year, but when he was on the field, he was very good. And now safety depth. Raheem Ashford.
Only played a few games, but was very good in those 2 games.
Yes, very talented player. Nobody's had barely any college football experience, but the games he did play, 1 interception, very talented. I mean, I have really high hopes for this whole secondary safety and everything for years to come. I don't know what it with, but NC State just makes very talented safeties and cornerbacks.
Yeah, a lot of it is that just the dog they have.
And now Sean Brown, he played a couple games. He got not really that much at all. But he's been in college. He's played in the college level before. And now Aiden White, arguably who I think is the best player on the team. It's him or Shaquem Battles right beside him. Cornerback 1.
Yeah, I do think.
Just a very talented player with a ton of dog in him. He knows the field. He knows everywhere he's supposed to be. He knows what he's supposed to be doing. 4 interceptions last year. Absolutely just crazy player. Knows what he's doing and everything.
Allowed 0 touchdowns.
Oh, 0, I mean. Man.
Yeah, that's very good.
Now, Robert Kennedy, 82, transfer out of Old Dominion.
Kind of at that star nickel linebacker role.
Yep.
A transfer, we don't know much about him. He went to Old Dominion, but we'll see how good he is this year.
And he was a very good player at Old Dominion. But, I mean, obviously, Old Dominion, not as talented of football programs as, like,
just how good the
ACC and SEC. He's never really played on, like, levels like this before. I mean, he had played against Virginia Tech and beat them. I mean, we all remember that.
That's true.
Yeah. And now we got 94 overall, Shaquem Battle. Arguably the 2 best players on our team, Aiden White, Shaquem Battle. 2 interceptions.
61.5 passer rating allowed, which is pretty
good. Very good.
Yeah, I do like Shaquem Battle. I feel like when people talk about how good Aiden White is, which is true, they do sleep on Shaquem Battle a little bit.
Yeah, I got very high hopes on him. I mean, he showed he could play football. He showed he will be one of the best state players from the ECU game. With just how he got an interception in that game, and he just was clamping up everyone and just strapping them all up. And now to cornerback star depth, Tayshawn Smith.
Didn't play much, but definitely a high potential guy.
Yes, he is. And now Rente Hinton hasn't really played that much at all, and he's not really a college experience yet. But I do have high hopes on him. Isaiah Crawwell really hasn't played. Rente Hinton is a transfer. Forgot to mention that. He did transfer. And now Isaiah Crawwell, he really didn't play any last year. But I do have hope that he will be a very good player. And now Nate Evans really just didn't play that much either. He did play some.
One game, it looks like.
Yeah, and he really wasn't the best in that game. But I mean, he really wasn't that good. He was really kind of bad. But I mean, it was one game. He's young. He didn't really have any college experience yet, so it's understandable for him. And now Jackson Vick hadn't really played at all.
Yeah, same thing as the last guys, pretty much.
Yeah, basically.
To wrap up that group there. But definitely a very good secondary, in my opinion. Probably, honestly, the best secondary in the ACC, like including Clemson, honestly. Do you agree with that?
100% agree. And now it's time for the Cam Can 4.
Karen, what is the Cam Can 4?
It shows the 4 players that I best believe that can have a show-out season and show people wrong and show that.
Yeah, that a lot of people aren't talking about.
Yeah. Like, I have very high hopes on them, and other people don't. So, obviously, we're starting with Terrell Timmons Jr., seeing him play high school football, a very talented player, and just seeing how he moved up in the NC State depth chart from like the very back to starting.
Really impressive.
Really impressive. How he gained 20 pounds in like a year and still moving how he moves is just absolutely insane.
What did he run on his 40 time in that Twitter video? Like a 4.3 something? It's probably not true, to be honest, but
I doubt it's true because that would be like absolutely insane. But if it was true, man, we already know.
Fast.
We already know he's tall, he's lengthy, he's fast. He can mega deep threat. He can head tap anyone he wants to.
Yeah, we've seen him at the high school level. He can definitely.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
he can 100% play football. Kevin Concepcion, very high hopes for him this year. Just really think he's gonna show out this year, and
I was really wanting UNC to get him. He was very close to committing to UNC.
yeah, it's just very high hopes on him. I'm very glad NC State got him.
Any receiver that Lonnie Galloway wants is just a very talented guy. So
any receiver that Carolina wants is just going to be a talented receiver.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they are that good. So.
And now to Juice Vereen, 4-star ranked freshman. Very high hopes on him. Just really believe he is a very talented football player, and he knows how to play the game. He's played great high school football. He shows he's a great player, and I'm very excited to see what he's going to do for NC State in the next couple years.
Probably won't play much this year, but next year when Trent Penix has to leave, because I'm pretty sure this is his last year, right?
Yes.
So he'll probably play a lot more next year after Trent Penix leaves.
Yes. And now Red Hibbler, transfer from a community college.
I love Red Hibbler.
And I have high hopes for him.
How can he not go to state with a name that has red in it?
I mean, it's just such a great name, too. I mean, just look at the name. It's just so magnificent.
What's his actual name? Like Kentavious or something?
Yes.
Like nicknamed Red?
And he's just such a talented player. Very high hopes for him.
I think he had like 3 sacks or more this year.
Yes, I really believe.
How many? Just give us a short little sack prediction.
I would say, because of how stacked our overall defense is.
That's true.
I don't know how much playing time he is going to get. I'll say 2.
Okay, that's still be good though for being in the first season.
Very good. Now next year when Peyton Wilson's going to be gone,
Open up a little bit off.
And
Devin Van, I think.
Yeah, he'll just have more opportunities to show out.
But yeah, is that it? All you got?
That's all I got here.
All right, so that is episode 1 of the TarPack podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed and our little like Madden ranking type things with the overall grades. Let us know in the comments down below where you agree, where you disagree. Subscribe to the channel for more. We're going to be doing 1 show a week. Next week, join us for our Week 1 preview, which is going to be absolutely wild that we're this close to college football. UConn versus NC State. And the big one, which we'll spend most of our time with since UConn.
College game day.
College game day, which we'll actually be in attendance for, by the way. Look out. We'll be wearing our merch in the front row, hopefully. So look out for us there. That'll be pretty dope.
College game day. TarPack podcast will be out in force.
Yes, we will be there. So look out for us. We will be waiting for you guys. But yeah, in the comments down below, let us know where you agree, disagree, and subscribe to our channel. We are going to be very excited about this. So join us for the preview episode next week, and we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.